Welcome back to the Linkzup DR channel. Today we're diving deep into a topic that doesn't get talked about enough: the track record of American businesses here in the Dominican Republic. Some of the biggest US franchises have come here with big expectations, only to pack up and leave a few years later. In this video, I'm not going to predict whether the Rock Café, which is now in Sosúa and opened, will succeed or fail. Instead, I want to give you the facts: which American brands came here, why they didn't last, and what lessons we can learn from their stories. Because history leaves clues. You know I like to dive deep on this channel. So let's go into a case study of businesses that are American that have failed here in DR. Dunkin Donuts. Dunkin Donuts came to the DR back in the 1990s. They were just selling donuts and coffee. They even tried a 24-hour service model. At first, it worked. University students loved hanging out overnight during exam season. But the cost of keeping stores open 24/7 was too high. Profits couldn't keep up with the expenses, and eventually Dunkin pulled out from the Dominican market. So the lesson here: just because a business model works in the US doesn't necessarily mean that it will work in the DR. All right, let's talk about IHOP. IHOP set up in Plaza Sambile in Santo Domingo. The location had problems from day one. You could see the sign outside, but actually finding the restaurant inside of the plaza was a maze. Then came the prices. A few pancakes cost as much as a steak dinner. And culturally, Dominicans prefer mango, eggs, and salami for breakfast, not pancakes. So IHOP never actually caught on. The lesson learned here: if you don't adapt to local tastes and pricing, you're fighting an uphill battle. Let's talk about Johnny Rockets. Johnny Rockets arrived in the 2010s with a lot of hype. People were excited for the American diner experience, but when customers tried it, the food didn't match the quality of the US version. On top of that, they went big, renting a massive standalone location on Avenida Abraham Lincoln. Their overhead was way too high. Even with the prime real estate, the math didn't work out. The lesson to be learned here: quality matters, and oversized real estate can sink a business. Let's talk about Denny's. Denny's tested the market in Las Americas airport and actually did pretty well. But when they expanded outside of the airport, they went all in on a giant 3-story restaurant with underground parking in Santo Domingo. The food was great, the service was solid, but the investment was way too big to recover. By 2019, they closed their doors. The lesson to be learned here: overbuilding in a new market is risky. Sometimes smaller and leaner is better. All right, with all seriousness, let's talk about Hooters for a second. Hooters was another US brand that gave it a shot here. While the wings were good, the concept didn't fit Dominican culture. Locals prefer family-friendly communal spots where you can bring anyone without awkwardness. And when it comes to watching sports, Dominicans would rather hit their local neighborhood restaurant or store rather than a Hooters. Can you imagine a Hooters in Sosúa? No. Anyways, the lesson here is cultural fit is everything. All right, let's talk about Quiznos. Quiznos started strong with a standalone location on Avenida Abraham Lincoln. But over time, quality slipped, sandwiches were overpriced compared to local meals, and customers weren't convinced. So they tried to adapt by moving into small kiosks, but it wasn't enough. Their free refill policy even backfired. Dominicans took full advantage and it ate into their profits. Lesson learned: consistency and cost control make more sense. Okay, these things matter more than gimmicks. The menu just didn't resonate here. Dominicans often prefer seasoned meats, rice, and traditional sides over plain burgers. Give me some hot sauce, please. Salsa picante me. Couldn't stand out against McDonald's or any other local foods that are cheaper and more fulfilling. There's a porta plata at McDonald's, but I have no plans of going there. So the lesson is: going head to head with the global giants and local cuisine is tough without serious localization. Let's talk about Applebee's. Applebee's also gave the DR a shot, sticking to their US casual dining concept. The issue was pricing. Meals cost significantly more than what Dominican family restaurants charged, and the local spots offered food that felt more authentic. Applebee's struggled to justify its prices. So, lesson to be learned here: mid-tiered US casual dining often struggles in a market where locals can eat for much less and much tastier. All right, let's get into it. Krispy Kreme. Krispy Kreme came with hype. Flashy donuts, strong branding, lots of excitement and start. But over time, Dominicans went back to what they always had: local bakeries, fresh pastries made daily at lower prices. Krispy Kreme still exists in smaller form, but it isn't expanding aggressively the way it once hoped. Lesson to be learned: competing with local staples requires more than just brand name recognition. All right, so now let's take a look at the bigger picture. Looking across these cases, a clear pattern emerges, if you haven't caught on to it yet. Cultural mismatch. The US menus, they didn't always fit the Dominican tastes. Overspending. Big flashy investments often lead to big overhead. There's also pricing problems. The US style pricing didn't work in a market where local meals are cheaper, more plentiful, and me personally, I'm going to say more tasteful. Inconsistent quality is another problem. Once food quality slipped, customers moved on. Now, this brings us to the Hard Rock Cafe, which is currently open as of today in Sosúa. Unlike fast food and casual dining chains, Hard Rock isn't just about food. It's selling an entire experience: entertainment, nightlife, live music, and an international vibe. But they do face the same challenges. Here's the big question: who are they targeting? If their advertising is aimed at Dominican families, they'll need to adapt to the local menu and keep prices affordable. Otherwise, locals will keep choosing their favorite Dominican spots. If they're targeting tourists, then they need a steady foot traffic. And that's uncertain right now. With police crackdowns slowing down, shifting tourism patterns, and seasonal highs and lows, they will have to put this into consideration. Number two, are Americans really coming here to eat American meals? A lot of foreigners, like myself included, come to the North Coast to get away from the Western lifestyle, not to relive it. If Hard Rock Cafe leans too heavily to the US identity, it could struggle. Lesson number three, high overhead and high standards. Hard Rock has purchased a big building and put a lot into its renovations. That means that their overhead will be high. To survive, they'll need consistent demand and cooking standards that remain just as high as in the United States. Number four, surviving low season. Opening towards the end of low season right now makes sense, but the real test is surviving when tourist flows slow down. A business like this has to stay alive through the quiet months, not just the busy ones that are coming up. Bonus point number 5, Hard Rock must have a special appeal. Hard Rock can't just be another burger and fry spot with dim lighting and groovy music. To survive in Sosúa, they need to have a real special selling point that draws in different groups: locals, expats, cruise ship visitors, deciding where to eat during their daytime stop in Sosúa, and middle to upper class Dominicans looking for a memorable evening out with their family or partner. For example, if Sosúa is truly heading towards becoming, let's say, the Vegas of DR, and not just a kite surfing, family-friendly beach town like Cabarete, then it needs to have more high caliber attractions. Hard Rock could play a role in that by hosting big-name Dominicans and local artists. With their global international reach and prime location, they're in a position to bring concerts, shows, and special events that give Sosúa another draw beyond just the beaches. And the nightlife, of course. The Hard Rock already has a theater inside, and if you watch my previous video, Sosúa has already started hosting outdoor concerts this month. Sosúa Symphony Orchestra, for example, drew out a large family-friendly crowd over the weekend. So watch the video I put out. They were actually, they're fire. It was really good, and it was refreshing. And let's not forget, Sosúa already has 2 large, well, let's say good-sized casinos and plenty of nightlife already. If Hard Rock leverages its space and uses that giant holographic screen that they have in the middle of town to promote unique acts, Sosúa could evolve possibly into an entertainment hub, a mini Vegas of the North Coast, with something for adults, families, and vacationers alike. Or maybe we're all thinking too small. What if Sosúa became the Vegas of the Caribbean? That's just one vision, but it's the kind of special edge Hard Rock will need. So, my reflections. The balance of culture. Let's talk about that for a second. For me personally, the reason I came to the North Coast was to escape Western culture, not be surrounded by it. I love the Dominican Republic. I love the people. I love the cuisine. I love the music, I love the faith, and I love the culture. While I have love for my home country, Canada, there is clear reasons why so many foreigners are leaving the West. They're searching for something more authentic. Furthermore, if I wanted to stay behind with the Western culture, if I wanted to get a mix of that, I would have invested in Punta Cana, for example. But what makes Sosúa and the North Coast more special is that small town feeling, the friendly locals, the fact that not everyone speaks English. That's not a drawback. It's actually an opportunity, okay? So for me, that's an opportunity to embrace language and embrace the local culture. It's the guy that's selling coconuts on the street corner, across from the guy who's selling fresh fish that he just caught right out of the sea. It's the beach vendors on Sosúa Beach. It's the tiny huts serving Dominican food. It's the souvenir stands. And yes, the country's deep connection to faith, of course. The Bible is literally on the Dominican flag. Imagine that in the West. Politicians would lose their mind. And that's what makes this place real. That's what makes this place so special. That's what makes this place authentically Caribbean. It's the charm. It's the people. When they make you think of that postcard perfect beach town in the movies. But this isn't a movie. These are real communities. They really exist across the north coast of the Dominican Republic and the Dominican Republic as a whole. If the government pushes all that out just to make room for foreign franchises, Sosúa won't be the same. But there is a middle ground, a balance where international investment and local businesses both thrive. That balance matters because if Sosúa becomes too Americanized, it risks losing that very magic that makes people fall in love with it in the first place. All right, so I've gone on for quite a bit. I'm gonna try and end this video right now, okay? So bear with me. The lesson is simple. American brands can't just copy and paste their US model into the Dominican Republic and expect to survive. So what do we need to think of? Will Hard Rock Café beat that pattern? Or will it end up like a case study with all the other failed US franchises here in the DR? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. So for me personally, I want to see every business succeed. I respect any entrepreneur willing to take the risk, move their family, invest their money, and try to build a legacy here in paradise. That takes real courage. That takes vision. That takes balls. It's always easier to sit behind a keyboard, criticize on YouTube, and make predictions that turn out to be wrong. I've had plenty of people tell me I would fail. And you know what? That just gave me the fuel to keep on pushing even harder. So I'm not here to predict the future or to throw shade on any new business owners. I'm simply pointing out the track record of American franchises here that have often failed because they didn't respect or adapt to the local culture. And if you're considering investing in the Dominican Republic yourself, this is exactly why it's so important to understand the market before you even put any money down. So you don't need 20 years to understand the market. But however, having someone with personal experience in the market and skin in the game can save you years of headaches. Believe me that. That's something I didn't have starting out. And that's now why I've created my consultancy. And it's also why I've created this YouTube channel, helping foreign investors and even Dominicans repatriating their country avoid the costly mistakes and position themselves for success. Unlike other YouTubers, I'm no Nostradamus. I just live, I made my mistakes, and I learned to read the writing on the wall. And remember, your dream life is possible, but only if you're willing to make the move. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.